Your girl passed her PMP exam! Passed. Thank you so much for choosing this video of all the videos to learn more about the PMP. I'm going to be breaking down what I learned through the 2.5-month process that I studied for the exam, and even a year-long journey when I even originally decided to apply. All right, so if you're watching these videos in chronological order, you have made it to the last video on my PMP experience. I hope that you found value. So you are on Professional TV, where by learning, doing, and sharing, we seek to be worth knowing, not just well known. Today, I'm going to talk to you about taking the PMP test at a testing center versus taking the PMP at home. If you're taking the PMP at a testing center, when you qualify to take the exam, your application has been accepted, you'll click that you want to take the exam at a testing center. So then you'll, of course, again, you'll get the calendar. It will tell you, it will highlight what days are available for you to go to a testing center. I was lucky that there was a date literally the next day. Like once I had figured out whatever issues we were having technically, able to schedule literally for the next day. So I scheduled for the next day. I went maybe about 20 miles away from my house. I live in Riverside, California, and the exam was in Redlands, California. I took the test. It was like a large office building, and they just had one of the units in there. And once again, the proctoring company is Pearson VUE, VUE. Because it's Corona right now, or because of Corona time, well, because of COVID, you must enter, of course, with a mask. It even said on the door that you must you must wash your hands, and once you enter the room, they will ask you if you've washed your hands. So I got there, went to the bathroom, washed my hands, came back. Got in there, they confirmed what exam I was there to take, and then they gave me like a laminated piece of paper, which pretty much just lets you know the policies. It's kind of like an NDA. You're not allowed to talk about what questions were on the exam. You're not allowed to walk into the exam room with certain things. There's even a locker. So once you turn in the laminated policy form that you've read, then you assert that you read it. Then they give you a locker key, and you put all of your belongings in the locker. I couldn't even bring my water bottle in there, so everything goes in there. Only thing that you take into the exam room is your ID and the key to your locker. So I went ahead and confirmed who I was and turned all my stuff into the locker. Then they had me kind of like pat myself down, make sure that all my pockets were empty. And then from there, they asked me if there's anything that I need. So they were providing me with a laminated document that you're kind of using like a whiteboard. So they give you markers to use on this whiteboard. And then they also give you there's so many different things that you could just add. They're like, is there anything else that you need? And I saw that there were calculators. And so I was like, oh, let me get a calculator. But like, oh, well, there's a calculator in the software program that you're going to be using, but I'll give it to you anyway. So I'm like, thank you. So she gave me the calculator. So I walked in, again, my ID, the key to my locker, the whiteboard markers, and a calculator. So I walk into the exam room. There was nobody else there, but there's like little cubicles. And then I walk into my little cubicle, and she has to log into the computer, and she gets me all set up. So I sit there. If you need to use the restroom or you need any help, you raise your hand, and there's somebody who's like in a glass room, almost like just like a glass barrier. Kind of like if you're driving a car, like the shielded part, or like the windshield is looking out to everybody in this room taking tests. So when you raise your hand, they can see you, and then they just come out and they help you or assist you. And then from there, I went ahead and got started on the exam. It pretty much asks you the same things I was talking about in this last video, where they ask you that, do you know how to use a mouse? Do you know how to highlight certain parts of the question to help you better understand it? Do you know how to strike out questions or answers that you know are incorrect if you're using process of elimination? There's also reviewing the questions that you were unsure about. So you can click this little flag in the top right-hand corner, and it will like remind you that you need to go back and confirm that that answer is correct, or that you just need to answer it in general. So that was helpful, so you don't get stuck on any one. Like if you feel like you're taking too long on that question, just flag it and move on to the next one. So after your first 2 hours of the exam, like right before the 2 hours are about to end, they will pop up on your screen a review box. And that box will say, now it's time to review the answers that you completed or that you flagged for review. And so now there's a drop down and you can see them listed one by one in rows. And so it will let you know that this one is incomplete. So you flagged it as reviewed, but there's no answer, or even that there is no answer. I don't think you may have not even flagged it, but just the fact that there's no answer for it, they're like, hey, it's in your best interest to answer all of the questions on this exam. You do not get docked for wrong answers. So there's a probability statistically that you could be correct, even if you guess. I went ahead and reviewed all of the ones that were either incomplete or that I clicked that needed just to confirm, or I needed more time to make sure that I had thought out the correct answer. So then from there, please note, time is still going while you're reviewing these questions. So then after that first 2 hours that you're reviewing, then you have an option to take a 10-minute break. So the 10-minute break does not count against you at all. For the 10-minute break, or if you chose to not take the 10-minute break, you had a minute to decide if you wanted to. There's like a little countdown. And then once you decide that you don't want to take the break, it just jumps back into your next 2 hours to take the exam. So now, again, you are highlighting things to better understand what they're asking you. You're crossing out things if you're using process of elimination. That is very, very helpful. And then from there, you can see in the right-hand corner the time that's going down, saying that you have less and less time. So it got to a point where I knew that I had 30 minutes left I had 20 minutes left to take the exam, but I had 30 questions left to answer. So now I'm rushing. I'm not doing my highlighting. I'm not doing my crossing out. I'm just carefully reading so I make sure that I'm answering the question correctly. And then I rushed through. Surprisingly, I was able to answer all the questions. The review thing popped up again. I was able to see which questions I had left blank, so I went to those first, made sure I answered those, and then all the ones that had been flagged that I wasn't quite sure if that was the correct answer, made sure that those were at least answered to my best ability. So when I realized that I had maybe only answered 70 questions at the 2 hour mark, I made sure that for the next 2 hours, that no matter what, even if I wasn't totally sure what the answer was, I at least marked something because I didn't want it to be incomplete. So I, of course, was making an educated guess at the answer, but worst case scenario, if I got to a point where I wasn't able to answer all of the questions at the end, at least I gave it my best. So luckily, somehow, thank God, I was able to review all of the questions that I had flagged and review all the questions that were incomplete, but otherwise, that could not have been the case. So definitely do your best to pick the best answer possible in a case you are in a situation where you're not able to review all the answers. So literally, as I reviewed the last question, it said, stop, you have no more time. So I was really grateful I got through everything. And then it literally tells you right then and there, congratulations, you passed the PMP. So that is wonderful. So you can walk out knowing that you passed, and then within 2 to 3 days, you'll receive an email. I received it pretty much later that evening that I had passed. And then even the people at the testing center had a printout stating that I passed, and it also lets you know which process groups you need to work on to do better in the future. So if I can, I'll go ahead and decide. If I can, I'll go ahead and kind of show you what I got when I left, and it kind of just tells you you are target, kind of like average when it comes to initiating. You are above average or above target when it comes to planning. And then it doesn't say anything negative. It just says needs improvement if it has something to do with closing. And I didn't really focus too much on closing because when you look at how the exam is graded, it specifically tells you that planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling are the most important. So it makes sense that I didn't focus so much on closing, and thus the closing answers weren't answered as accurately. That definitely should be a tidbit that I put in the how to study, but focus heavily on planning, executing, monitoring / controlling, because that's going to be the bulk of the exam. And I noticed a lot of questions about change management or about the performing integrated change management. So make sure that you have a good understanding about that and kind of always answer the questions as if you are a top-notch, super ethical, by-the-book project manager. Because we know that people are human, so sometimes you make some, allowances when things happen, but you should make sure when you're taking this test, you are top-notch ethical. So, for example, if you are told that you've either run out of money or something has happened to one of your team members, you follow it by the book. Don't go by, oh, this sounds like a nice thing to do. You have to do what sounds like the right and correct thing to do. So you follow that rule of thumb, it will help a lot, and you won't be on the fence on if that's correct or if it's not correct, because you know that they want by the book. So I hope that's helpful. Once again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I am more than happy to answer those questions. If I don't get back to you within like a day or two in YouTube, then go ahead and just use my other social media to reach out to me, and I'll make sure that I answer and check all of those little inboxes, because there's like your main inbox and then there's like a superlative one or something like that. But I'll make sure I check all of those. So if you have any questions, you can get to me. And I think my email is also in my description, so you can also reach out to me there if you prefer email. All right, thank you so much, and best of luck on your PMP exam, and you're going to do great. Just make sure you focus on what's weighted and go in there confident that you're going to do a great job. All right, thanks, bye.